start with the approval of the agenda and approval of minutes, November 12th, 2024.
A motion to approve the agenda and the minutes as written.
I'd second that.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, and the consent agenda passes. Approval of the 2025 Planning Commission meeting schedule. No items on the administrative session. Then we have 3 items on the legislative session. And are we going to be going in order on the agenda? Okay, and who will be presenting for the first ones? All right. Then for the matter of Gary Reese, when requesting an amendment to Westfield Central New Neighborhood Plan. Turn the time over to
Okay, I'm just going
benefits.
to tell you, don't ask me a lot of questions. Because I know only what is written in here. Josh had a family emergency and had to go home. It's really very straightforward. There is a section that was amended that was adopted. The last amendments were adopted back in March, and they called for the prohibition of artificial wood texture siding surfaces. And Lafferty evidently has been able to show us the large cost difference in having to provide that. And so in an effort to lower the costs of housing and hopefully get something built and moving that is more within line of people being able to afford them, we went ahead and took that out. It's really very minor. It doesn't change really the look or the feel of anything, and we feel that making that change does not detrimentally affect the intent of the Westfield Central New Neighborhood Plan. And then I believe that there was one other change. They also took out the wood, if visible, shall be painted or stained with an opaque stain. We no longer need to stop them from using transparent stain. So that's the big one, but that's all we got.
Okay. Is the petitioner here?
No, I don't think they even care about this.
Okay.
I shouldn't say that on the record. Oh my heck.
Any questions for Carla?
I do. Is this, they've shown you samples of what this looks like?
Yes, I believe so. Josh and Laura felt completely comfortable with the change that they were making. And so, unfortunately, I have not seen it. I don't know anything about it. But I'm assuming that if it was ugly, knowing Josh, he would be like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, but I mean, this is going to open it up to anything anybody wants to use, right?
One thing, I believe so. So whether if it's been crafted narrow enough for them to limit it in some way, I apologize, Ralph. I can't answer that. But I can, if you're concerned about that enough to table this, we can do that, and I can get back with Josh, and we can get those questions answered for you.
I can probably provide some context, at least to why it was included originally.
That's what I would like to know.
So Tom Lowe, the planner and code writer for this plan, he is part of an organization and a method or a teaching that's called New Urbanism, which is backed by pedestrian and less auto-centric communities, but also authenticity of materiality, intent. And so when this particular type of code is included in a plan, I've done it in multiple communities. It's mainly to make sure it's like you're not calling something that's not really what it is. So the intent behind this is if it's not actually wood siding, don't put a fake grain on there because it's not really wood siding.
Oh, okay.
So it's the authenticity portion of that code or that backing there. This is where the line gets gray for me, because I don't know that that's something that should be legislative. It should be educated at a developer level, not necessarily a legislative item, in my opinion, because I don't know that we're, as a city, in the business of controlling costs for a developer with materials of installation.
I agree, and I think my understanding, as I just briefly chatted with Josh about that, is that Hunter is completely 100% on the original intent, is for the authenticity. However, with the kind of climate right now in the state of, and developers crying to the legislature that cities are not doing anything to help them build affordable housing, and that it's all city's fault. We've already were the poster child that they were throwing darts at for the public infrastructure districts a year or so ago. And so I think just wanting to make sure that it was adopted as legislative. It became legislative because it was adopted in the traditional neighborhood development, which was codified. And so that is why in a typical code it wouldn't. We're not allowed to have those types of design standards at all. But feeling that the cost would make it much more difficult for them. And kind of recognizing the grand scheme of what has happened, the kind of climate out there.
It's likely greater than a 20 to 30% increase in cost to go from a smooth finish siding to like cement. And that's where I do think, so the design code currently, it does call out that they have to use a fiber cement board. It doesn't allow vinyl siding products, that's already a superior material in my mind. But the intent, or at least what I think they're trying to get at is if there's still a fiber cement board allowed, the developer's asking, can we save the additional 20, 30% to be able to put elsewhere into the house?
Put like smooth, or I'm trying to understand it, because I've
I've
put a developer and a builder, I mean, usually if we're talking about like the metal look, it's like it looks like wood, but it's really metal siding that they put them on McDonald's now. You see the vertical stuff. Is this that same type of stuff? Because that's usually more expensive.
No, what you see on McDonald's in commercial applications is usually an aluminum material.
Yeah.
This is a fiber cement I do like a smooth finish fiber cement board. It does look good. Like it's like a sanded finish of what you'd see on a historic home. But for whatever reason, Hardy Board and these other Allura and all these different siding manufacturers, they actually upcharge you for a smooth finish, even though
Yeah, it's like drywall,
it's weird. It's strange.
When you wanted it textured, they charge you more. Then it flips around. Depends on what's hot and not.
Right.
Yeah, so we are still requiring the higher grade fiber cement siding. We're just not requiring it to be the textured.
No.
So.
So it could be smooth face is what they're saying.
Yes.
So is there anything to do with like is the product's the same? It's gonna wear the same way as the.
Yeah, it's just a
It's
finish.
just a textural issue, and
Just one
I mean,
smooth and one.
I'm thinking about the
has
neighborhoods you
grain.
were talking about previously. They don't want if you're supposed to use cedar, they don't want you using a particle board version of cedar because it's not going to hold up,
Right.
and it's going to bring down the value of the property.
Right.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same product. It's just the finish that is different. Same quality on all of them.
Other residents already there, other parts of this community that are developed that have had this standard, and now
I think
they're.
Lafferty's the first ones doing exteriors with siding right now,
Yeah.
from what I
Okay.
understand.
I mean, I'm just asking if.
Yes, as far as I
I'm not
understand it, Hunter is
I'm not that
correct.
familiar with this development. I'm just saying, if we're
Unfortunately.
changing the design standard after someone's bought into that, there's a lot of homes. And I agree, a lot of times we don't get into this because, well, usually there's the C of Cs in the development, you know what I mean? That's, and the developer's required to manage, do all that stuff. The city doesn't get involved in saying, sorry, you didn't meet the right criteria, tear your house down. They have structural issues and something else, but they don't monitor that.
That's
But there are definitely some liabilities with a builder that starts a project with an A design, and then as it goes and they're waiting to sell, and if the selling's not happening, then they start to reduce so that they can encourage other buyers to come in.
Yeah.
Then they're open themselves to liability, because I bought A, and now you're telling me everybody has to be A, and now you're selling C, so my neighbor has C, and my house basically is less value, is what's I'm talking about. So is that this situation? I don't know this.
I don't, my understanding is that this is the first group that Lafferty has been doing, and so that it has not occurred elsewhere, so.
Yeah,
Why are we defining it now?
Because they came to us and just said the cost is prohibitive, and we're looking to
No,
build.
I mean, why are we defining it in the first place? What I'm asking.
It was, like I said, it was included in the traditional neighborhood development, as,
Overlay.
as a, no, this isn't an overlay. The traditional neighborhood development, the new neighborhood plan was actually codified, and as part of as part of that new neighborhood plan, it laid out all of those very specific design criteria to maintain the authenticity. And so, since all of it was codified, we have to go in and make that change. It's different than one of the overlays or just a regular subdivision.
yeah, where this differs is typically, and this is where I think it could have just been an unfamiliarity either on the city's part or the developer's part, in that this typically, like I've included this in the CC&Rs of a development as the design code, but then is enforced by the residents rather than the city.
Right, because
Um,
otherwise you can't get an occupancy permit if they haven't, complied.
Correct, and it is putting the city at risk of needing to enforce design elements, which I think is a dangerous thing, because design at this level, with it where it's not very descriptive, it can get dangerous as far as the city trying to define what good design is. But as for like this particular code change, I think we've gone back and forth. I personally am a fan of, let it be what it is, and if it's not wood, then don't make it look like wood. But
My question
it's-
mainly has to do with, why are we doing this as opposed to like smooth or rough finish? I can see that valid argument, but I'm just surprised that we're doing that. And I've heard a couple times, there are other projects we're doing this as well, right?
Yes, anything that's adopted as excuse me, as a traditional neighborhood development includes gets down to these particulars, and they are codified. So we maybe that is something that we may come across.
But
That's
it's
all the
the same material.
Same material, it's just a matter of
different
smooth or
finish.
textured.
And I
Correct.
feel like that's a level of specificity that
Yeah.
should not be legislated,
right,
Yes, but as I said, it was part of
Yeah,
that original, and
but
so
I'm
now,
saying
so hopefully maybe
if
it
we
will
take
not
it
be.
out, then we're not
Yeah.
legislating that
And-
anymore.
And to Ralph's point, I think in the future, if we have another development, or maybe it's something we look at as a planning commission, where the city essentially has a package of design standards that it can include for someone that wants to apply for or build in a traditional neighborhood development zone, but that it needs to be applied in their CC&Rs rather than as a legislative piece to that development.
Yeah.
Does it even normally come up before us?
Only if it has been codified, and this issue has been codified because we adopted the traditional neighborhood plan as a regulating plan and regulating code for this development.
That's all my questions.
Okay. Thank you, Hunter. Save my bacon.
Yeah, thanks. That was great.
That's good. So we'll open the public hearing, and if you come up, make sure to say your
Thank
name
you
and
for-
address.
Covering.
Yes, thank you very much. Glad we.
Thanks, Carl.
So are we
The public hearing is open, so.
not seeing anybody approaching? I move that we close the public hearing.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so then we can, move, I don't, yeah. So then we can discuss, or someone make a motion.
I'm good on the discussion. I feel like we've got through a bit of that, which was good.
Yeah, me too.
Nothing to add. So I motion to approve the, let's see, to recommend approval of the requested amendment, including staff's request to eliminate the specifications for permitted exterior wood finishes.
We have a motion
Have a second?
and a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that was unanimous?
Yeah.
Okay. So now on to Springville Public Works requests a recommendation on the adoption of the transportation impact fee analysis. I'm assuming that is you, sir?
Is it listed as me on the agenda, or is it somebody else? Doesn't have, so,
Is
I
the
just-
name tag in front, so it was just has your name on it for the last month or two.
yeah, he left town.
I just figured
I,
probably public safety, probably public works. But it could be other way, you know.
no, that's fine. I stood in front of you a few weeks ago. Chris Wilson, our city engineer, was giving you a presentation on the transportation master plan and the impact fee facilities plan. And then I stood up and talked to you about the impact fee analysis. After that date, we actually found an anomaly in the analysis that we went back and fixed. And so I'm back here because the actual impact fee went up by about $60. So we renoticed it, put all the documents back out, and so I'm here to just go over that part of it. So we'll just go through, and so tonight what you're going to be looking at is there's going to be 3 documents. We do our master plans every 3 to 5 years. In this case, for the transportation master plan, we did actually all 3 documents. We do the impact fee analysis, the impact fee facilities plans every year because the costs change so much. So tonight we're going to be talking about all 3 of those on the transportation master plan. So we have these 3 documents before you. The documents were made available. They went to the utility board and then to the planning commission and then also to the city council work session. So I'll be going back to the city council regarding the same presentation I'm giving you tonight with that change in that impact fee. And so that's why we're going through the public noticing and hearing all the way through. And so all of that's been completed. So we're just following the letter of the law as we go through. So this is the sheet that we showed you before. The difference here is the kind of the orange line under transportation to where the fee was about and I guess I can use my mouse here, was about $14.60. Now it's $14.61. And we're just going to go through just a little bit. And that puts us about we're in the top 7 of out of 17 different cities that have that. So we're more or less in the middle. Again, we show this slide in case there's public here that Utah law says growth pays for itself and nothing else. Ratepayers pay for any deficiencies. That gives us a balance. You've seen this before. The council will have the ability to either charge the maximum allowable fee or they can actually reduce it. We caution anybody that wants to reduce it, if you take away from that growth side of it and add it to the other side, what you get is an unbalanced situation to where the ratepayers are now paying for some of that growth that's coming into the community. So in the level of service, and what I did is I went through and I just gave a quick overview as I did the other master plans, and so I'll just do it here. We look at lane capacities, what roadways can use, and basically the way we've set it up in all communities, they look at more or less the level of service D, which is where you have about, if you have a 3-lane road, you can get about 15,100 vehicles per day through through that community. And so that's where we designed to. There's a little bit of congestion, but not a lot. And so that's kind of the level that the city has gone to. In fact, all cities use level of service D, because you can't make everything at level of service A where there's 100% free-flowing traffic. It doesn't work. And we also look at intersection delays and how much time does it take to get through, and the same thing as we designed to that. So in signalized intersections, you could wait for as long as 35 to 55 seconds in that, and that's still acceptable, okay? Now, if it takes you 4 or 5 cycles in the traffic signal to get through, that's a problem, right? And so that's what we look at. And so we actually, is our existing level of service, and we actually had some people that were colorblind, so I moved these. You can see these things coming across because a lot of them, they can't see red. And so, and I'll go backwards here so you can see that we have in the red there, these are level of service E or worse, which means that traffic signal is actually failing. We have 2 of those right now. And you notice at about 5 o'clock-ish on Main Street that we get backups here, and that's because the signal at 4 South and Main Street can't handle the amount of traffic that needs to go in both directions. There's just too much traffic. And hopefully when they finish the interchange down on 16th South, a lot of that Mapleton traffic will go further south, and that won't be the issue. And then also we have acceptable as level of service D. So we have some areas in the community where we're already at that, to where, and it's interesting, you think, well, I've never seen a lot of traffic up there on the north interchange, but when a lot of the big industries let out, you get this rush of people coming through there to get on the freeway and go home. And so we have that there. We have it also in North Main Street in that area, and even along 4 South as you go up towards the roundabout. And again, those are triggered by large events, whether it be a school or a big industry letting out people.
Is
And
there
so-
nothing, sorry, can I back up? Is there nothing, what about the exit on the freeway exit there?
Right here.
Or do we not study that part? Yeah.
Okay, this is the state highway part of it on the interchange, which they know about. And again, that's an issue that UDOT is dealing with. That's one that we don't go with. And a lot of it actually has to do with the fact that people get caught out in the middle of the intersection because they won't wait, and then it clogs up traffic in all directions.
Is that first stoplight there where it would be like by Wendy's or whatever?
Right here,
That one, is that the
West.
city's?
No, that's UDOT.
Still UDOT, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how that was.
Yeah. And so, and that's something that, I mean, even here when I go home at 5 o'clock trying to get across Center Street, there'll be people that are parked in the middle of the intersection and they're blocking it, and I have a green light and I can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that's just it's an issue that we have to deal with because people aren't following the law. And so tonight, what we're adopting and looking at is the actual master plan document, and in this case, the impact fee facility plan with it, but the impact fee analysis is the one we're focusing on tonight, because in that analysis, we found that math error and we fixed it. If it would have been less, then we wouldn't really worry about it because we would just be able to charge less, but because $60 more is why we're coming back to the Planning Commission. And so instead of 1460 or 1401, it's 1461. And so this is where it still puts us in the same place. We didn't change any as far as the location, but this is when you compare us with the other cities in Utah County. So we're below the county average, and so we feel it's a good fee, and that is the staff recommendation for that. And so, unless you have questions, this is where you open the public hearing and go forward.
Anyone have questions? We'll open the public
Like, can we
hearing.
go back to that map really quick? I'm kind of talking PR for the city. So, like, as a resident of the city, it would be nice if I knew, you know what I mean? People get frustrated and realize that those are, as you're trying to get off the freeway, what lights are actually controlled by the state, all the way clear into, like, up there past Smith's, all those are all controlled by the state?
Yeah, I would have thought
Everything on
Main and
4th
Fourth South would be.
Yeah, so So all these signals here on 4 South, including this Main Street signal, is handled by UDOT. This signal here at 4th East is run by the city.
I just was curious, I just thought that might be
And all
helpful
these
for the
signals
residents to
on
know.
Main Street
Yeah.
are also UDOT.
Yeah.
And maybe these guys get those kind of conversations with people that have accidents out there, I don't know.
I think though in the city limits, you cover police activity on Main Street, even though it's a state highway.
I
and
mean,
4
it's
South.
pretty hairy. I get off that freeway every time I'm getting off. I'm trying to get in line right after the 14th, north exit. You gotta get in line, and then you're, watching in behind you. And then as you get closer, then you got the people trying to dodge in front of you because they didn't know when. I'm just curious. Anyway, I just thought that might be helpful for somehow to, because people can exert influence on the state as opposed to this dang city,
So, in reality, the 16th South interchange that they're working on right now was influenced by the legislature because the city went to the state legislature and was able to lobby that. It was not on UDOT's plan.
It's great.
So we were able to have a really big success in that one. Yeah.
Thank you. That was my only question. I mean to drag it out. But
Well, if we don't have any more questions, then we'll open the public hearing.
Seeing that no one is approaching, unless Brad, you want to say something as part
Well, I
of
was
the
just gonna
public
say,
hearing.
I put drinking water and pressurized irrigation, but that's not what we're,
I know, I saw that and I was like,
that's really
I didn't
embarrassing. I'm
Cool.
sorry.
realize that was in here. Or at first I was like, are you suggesting we take a drink of water at this point? Some refreshment break?
That's my fault.
Do you finish your motion?
Yeah, now.
Yeah, so we have a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's unanimous, we'll close that. Discussion on the Public Works Transportation Master Plan.
Nope.
Okay,
I motion to recommend approval of the proposed 2024 Transportation Master Plan, IFPP and IFA update, and charging it the full impact fee as detailed in the IFA.
a second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Again, unanimous. All right, so we can now move on to the Springville Public Safety requesting a recommendation on the adoption of the Public Safety Master Plan, Impact Fee Facility Plan, and Impact Fee Analysis.
All right,
Sorry,
this is
just
my
one
first
second,
time at the
Brad.
planning
Thank
commission.
Oh, sorry, just a moment, Chief. All right, now we've got a quorum back, so you can
Alright.
go ahead, Chief.
I'm Chief Lance Haight. This is my first time at the planning commission. I've been with Springville for 4 years, so this is my first run into impact fee analysis too. So I've learned a lot, and there's still a lot more to learn. They're kind of tricky.
Friendly audience, so.
All right, good. So there's going to be a lot of text and a lot of numbers here. I'm just going to try to give you a broad overview, and if you have more questions, you can answer, and you can ask, and I'll do my best to answer. So as you know, residential and non-residential growth creates demand for new public facility services and facilities. This chart just shows the Mountain Lands Association of Governments forecast for projected growth for Springville over the next 7 years. So the impact fee facilities plan considers only facilities in the calculation of impact fees. That includes public safety buildings, so the police station, the fire stations. But it also can include fire apparatus vehicles that cost more than $500,000. that's going to be anything bigger than an ambulance. So a fire engine is going to cost about, what do you think?
$1 million.
$1 million. Our new ladder truck's coming. It's $1.2 million. It'll be here in January. We ordered it almost a year and a half ago. So the prices are going up. So that's for a ladder truck, a 100-foot ladder truck. But for an engine, they're over $500,000 for sure. All right, so to develop the impact fee facilities plan and analysis, they have to take a look at existing service levels for both police and fire, and they base it on the current capital facilities that we have, current facilities. And as you know, as demand increases with development, it's going to create more calls for service in the police department and in the fire department. So that shows that the number of residential calls for police calls in 2023. So police calls, just remember about 20,000 police calls in a year. So that the current police facility was overbuilt, forecasting for towards build out. So we're not utilizing all this space right now, but we will by the year 2050. So this chart shows the expectation of the calls in 2050. And then they take that as a square footage calculation of square foot per call. So they're basing it off of build out in 2050, not what we're using the square footage now in our calculation, but the calls are smaller. All right. So remember, there's 20,000 police calls compared to about 2,000 fire and EMS calls in 2030. So this is a calculation of calls per residential unit based on the total number of calls and the number of residential units. All right, so the current fire facilities are about 25, almost 26,000 square feet. So when they do the calculation of the number of calls, we have about 2,000 a year. So it's about almost 12 square feet per call. But we realize that we will have future growth that will exceed our current square footage in the fire department. So right now, our Station 41, right here across the lawn, 2 years ago we built out the dorms, so there's 6 dorms, and so we can house 6 firefighters 24/7. So if we're going to expand anything beyond that for 24/7 service, we have to build additional dorms. The next place we're going to build dorms is up at Station 42, which is at the top of 4 South over here. So it's basically a garage right now. They're going to add on dorms, 9,000 square foot of dorms and other facilities up there. And we'll have to do that by about after 2026. We'll run out of capacity down here. So let's see here. As I mentioned earlier, the police department's facility has excess capacity. And I just mentioned too, the fire station will have to expand out. So when we expand Station 42 up there, we predict that it's going to cost about almost $5.5 million to do that, just with increased costs. I mentioned earlier we have the ladder truck coming in after the first of the year, and then our oldest engine is 25 years old, so it's reached its end of its recommended lifespan. And again, it's going to cost about $1 million to replace that fire engine there too. So they can use the cost of those 2 pieces of equipment and roll that into impact fees. Particularly for the ladder truck is attributed to commercial development.
What do they do with the old trucks?
They try to sell them, but they really don't have much of a salvage value. So our ladder truck right now, we put it on the auction and we got a bid for like $5,000, but then they didn't pick it up.
I understand. I'm just curious how that worked, if different cities were, that didn't have anything.
Sometimes Mexico will buy them.
Yeah.
But if you're in the market, we've got to.
No, I just wondered if it was
One
an
owner.
option for the city to donate to some other city that may never have, or doesn't have the budget to even, I'm just curious.
Yeah, we could consider it, but typically we just put it on the auction and see what we can get. But there's really isn't much of a market for them. So like our ladder truck, the ladder will go up, but it won't come down. So that's a problem. So yeah. So we're getting a brand new one. We're also
you
gonna
wanna
buy
go under a
land
bridge?
for future fire station. That's gonna be rolled into our impact V2. Probably build it somewhere on the west side, right? So
I
we're
see.
looking at land kind of over by Walmart, seeing if we can find something over there.
And when's that expected to?
Well, we'd like to buy we have some impact fees, money that we've already collected, and we'd like to use some of that to buy the land sooner than later so we can get a better price on it. So we're looking right now.
Okay.
So here's a lot of numbers about the, how the call volume will increase for the police department over the next, 17 years. This is a chart about how the fire calls will increase over the same time period.
Is that based on the number of residents that are coming or projected growth?
Yeah, they take the current square footage and then the current call volume, and then they predict growth, and then how that'll make our call volume grow. Yep. Now this shows the proportionate share analysis. Is that the same chart? Yeah, it is.
It looks like the same chart, yeah.
Same chart. Good call. Okay, so this is the breakdown. So they take the number of police calls, the square footage, and they get a total cost per call, and then they do a tricky calculation because we bonded for the existing building that's overbuilt, and so they take out a portion of the bonding element so that the new development don't have to pay twice for the existing police facility. And then the end result is the bottom of the slide there. It shows that the maximum police impact fee can be for a residential unit, $352.91.
So, how do you know what your optimal calls per unit or square foot is?
It's not optimal. They just take the number of calls we get annually, and then they just extrapolate that based on growth. So they say for this much the existing square footage today, this is how many calls we have this year. So that gives us a ratio. And then they say, okay, we're going to grow by this much square footage, so it's going to increase our volume by that proportion.
Okay.
So all we're doing is calculating the impact of new growth, right?
Right.
'Cause this is an impact
So you build
fee.
10 more houses, you
It's
build
gonna,
100 more houses, that's going to give you
yeah.
2.75 more police calls that year. So
So do you, like, you said the police station is like overbuilt? Is it just, like, you know that you don't have enough when you don't have enough space? Or, like, how do you know when you need to expand?
So this calculation is based on the assumption that we won't need at build out in 2050 is that that's when we'll reach our capacity in the police department.
Okay.
They're on the assumption that we won't run out of space. They'll
And then
just
for
right
the,
to the wire.
for the fire department, how do you know that you need to add the dorms up there?
Yeah,
Is it
good
just
question. Because
there's not enough manpower to
Yeah, 'cause-
cover everything?
right,
Or you project that it won't be?
right. So today we can house 6 firefighters, and our call volume is right at the door where we can handle the calls during the night, but during the day, we're almost to the point where we need to add another ambulance during the day.
Oh, okay.
And so eventually with growth, and our growth's been pretty flat for a couple of years, but with growth, then our call volume is going to increase to the point where we need additional firefighters at night, and they're going to have to sleep somewhere. And so that's where we're going to have to build the dorms.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that's for police. Now here's fire. Similar calculation where they take the call volume, square footage, and then they take out the bond element for the bond they used to build the fire station. Then they throw in the vehicles. They account for the cost of the vehicle, the salvage value of the vehicle you're replacing, and these are all estimates. And then they combine it all at the bottom of the screen to say that the fee per residential unit would be about $745.87. And then the next the next slide shows the combined fee of police and fire, and then the total impact fee per residential unit, and then the square footage fee for non-residential. And then it shows the increases per year for the next 6 years. And then
So
as a comparison to other,
Non-residential's not commercial, or it includes commercial and other things?
Mhm.
Okay. So even though like the ladder truck situation is a lot of times for commercial, that doesn't bump them up even in the dollar range per square foot?
well, this is per square foot. The cost for the residential is not, it's per unit, and then the non-residential is per square foot.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. I was like,
Yeah, it's
that is a
confusing how they,
pricey per square.
and some,
Can you go- Can you go to the back, last one, sorry, real quick? The one that showed the years and it was one that, sorry, I don't know. There we go. Well, that was the one that said each year, are you looking for an
Oh, no.
analysis for like the next eight years? Is that what we're talking about today?
So impact fees, our consultant took us out 6 years.
Okay. So are we, the impact fees we're talking about today, are we talking about approving or recommending for approval, I should say, for the next 6 years through 2030 is what you're asking? I just want to make sure I was watching all the way as it expanded,
But
because,
yeah, these are for the next 6.
so you'll only come here every 6 years?
No.
Well, the mayor wants us to come back every year now.
Yeah.
Okay.
They project it further, but they'll be back each year.
And I think the consultant did it this way because you have to use impact fees within 6 years.
Yeah.
So here's a comparison to how we compare to other cities. So our current Springville total impact fee for public safety is $461 per residential unit. Now, back, and they last did this report in 2020, so 4 years ago. And the 460, so there was a recommended maximum allowable fee by the consultant, and the city council approved to collect 80% of that maximum fee. And I wasn't
Oh.
here, so I don't know why they did that, but they did. So right now we're still, and it was supposed to go up every year, but it didn't. So it stayed at that 80% level for the last 4
4
years.
That is a big jump.
Yep, it is a big jump.
How is Orem lower than what our low one is? Is it just they have so much existing facilities already, they don't have new facilities that they're building in?
It could be that. It could be they haven't updated their impact fees. I'd have to call them and ask them for particulars.
Yeah.
Here's a more comprehensive, super small fine print, but this shows, this was brought to us by the Home Builders Association at the last city council work session last week, and this is the most up-to-date numbers they had for the different impact fees and then the total for each city. So you just mentioned Orem, right? So Orem
12,000.
overall is total is 12,000, and compared to the Springville.
21,000.
Well, and I think this chart specifically brings up what Brad has pointed out to us in previous meetings, where it's a balancing act depending on
Yeah.
the level of services Springville is providing versus other cities, what they're providing. Like, our culinary water is much lower than others because we have great water, but we also are going to be higher in certain areas. So it's a balancing act.
Yep.
Well, and I think that it's too, like, a lot of the ones that are higher are cities that are growing a
Yeah.
lot more, and so they're gonna have more, like, need to build out facilities.
Well, and I'm sure Chief Hay was going to get to this point, but I think where public safety, it's noted in the packet, where public safety differs from our other impact fees is that if we don't include the increase in our impact fees for public safety with police and fire, then in order to cover the costs of the needs of public safety, it's going to have to come from somewhere, and that's where it would actually cause increased taxes rather than increased impact fees.
Impact fees.
And if you, a great point. and if we compare ourselves to like another city like Orem, where if they built their fire stations years ago,
Yeah.
so looking
They
at the
don't have
cost
to
of
have
just the expansion for the dorms up here is going to cost more than that station, that existing station, and this existing station combined. It's just because we built them over a decade ago. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
well, that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, let me do my best to answer them.
Do you have any other questions?
Oh, good job, thanks.
We asked a lot of them throughout, so thank you very much. All right, we will open the public hearing.
Not seeing anybody, I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that is unanimous. And so then now discussion on.
One thing as far as discussion goes, I will say in the third-party report that they did, it did say they explored other financial alternatives, like
Oh.
grants and things like that, and there were no other grants
Yeah,
that would help support us there. So,
Yeah.
Right.
Does anybody else? I mean, I know the last couple meetings we've been at. I mean, we've recommended a lot of approvals for a lot of kind of catching up for not collecting fees, this, that, and the other. But it's like, does anybody worry about the balancing act with regards to what this does for growth? I mean, don't you think it disincentivizes growth in Springville? Or is that just not a thing?
I think it depends on what your perception of what that means.
Yeah.
So if I put on my hat as a builder, then I say, well, yeah, I want to build in
Yeah.
this city, or I want to build in that city.
Right.
But the reality is, we all have to put on our hat as a resident and say, well, if we allow a builder to come in and build out 500 units with no impact fee, all of that money now is gone.
Right. So
And we've actually encouraged a debt incurred on the other people.
yeah.
And I have a family member, I don't want to, because it's the public record, but I have a family member that is living in that situation where the taxes had to be increased because they were trying to
didn't do it.
encourage development.
Right.
So they they kept their fees low, a huge development came in, but like he said, you put in X number of houses, the numbers are gonna tell you, I'm gonna have to go, as much as none of us like to hear it, I'm gonna have to go to this house 1.81 times. And then all of a sudden, everyone's having to raise taxes, and they're saying, well, why? And, the police
I
are
guess
saying,
I guess
well,
I get that part, and I think, but it's a balancing act, right? To incentivize and to keep the quality and to provide the services. So how do we know if we're
well,
recommended a
that's where
balancing
I think
approach?
the impact fees are just one piece to the puzzle.
Yeah.
Like, especially seeing where we compare, like what she had on the screen, like where we're comparing with other cities in
Yeah.
Utah County. We are not, and we're still competitive. I could say that, but I think there's so many other factors such as land cost,
yeah.
demographic, projected use and growth of a particular area, proximity to universities. Like, there's so many different things that
I feel like
play into it that I don't know that the impact fees are going to decentivize the growth at all.
Right.
I agree. I think there's a lot of just natural incentive for people to want to live in Springville. And so I don't think that the cost is going to be like, ooh, I'm going to go and live in another city that I don't like as much.
Right.
So I don't have to pay.
It's not necessarily
The
being
extra.
considered by a homeowner per se.
I don't.
And that's the portion that I think existing residents, it may de-incentivize update or adjustment to their current property based on what they may be charged. Like if someone wants to do an addition or add additional services to their current property, they're going to need to pay these fees. And I don't think they're going to be expecting that cost. Whereas if
Yeah.
I'm a developer or someone that's just going to go build a new home,
Then you're
I'm expecting to pay the money.
Right.
And so it could just be a communication part to the community as far as, yeah, you used to be paying $8,000 for your impact fees. Now you're paying 14. Now, depending on the situation, it may or may not make a difference.
Right.
Plus, when someone goes for a remodel, they aren't paying the impact fees for the sewer, the water, unless they're adding additional functions and
Yeah.
features. But
Right.
I definitely think like I said, in some cases, it has an impact on the residents, and if the residents aren't able to upgrade, it has to, costs are real. Every element in there, you add an extra house, you have extra capacity for every single one of these elements, and we have those hard costs as a city. And, so I think anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
I know, I agree, because it's frustrating. I remember when the permits were around $4,000 for a normal standard home. And Lehigh City came in and took theirs to 13,000. Everyone was like, they're crazy. No one will ever build in Lehigh. There you go.
That aged well.
That didn't pan out quite the way
But
they thought.
now they have the ability to provide the same service and protection or whatever, so.
Right.
Well, and just anecdotally, I live just a few blocks, so I hear, when like ambulances go out and fire trucks go out, and it does seem more frequent than it was 15 years ago. So there's definitely a greater need for, fire, ambulance, and those kinds of public safety things. So, I mean, it's happening.
Okay. Well,
I'm good for a
Yeah,
discussion.
me too.
Discussion wise, okay. Entertain a motion.
a motion.
Hunter seems to have found all the motions.
That's what I'm
quick,
trying to.
so-
Now I can't find this one. So.
I'm not gonna put
It's on the back side of, no, yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
Did I just
Exhibit
not
C.
see it?
It's on the first page of it,
Oh, okay. Motion. Okay.
motion, right there.
Got it?
All right. I recommend that the Springville City Council approve the public safety impact fee facility plan, impact fee analysis, and the resulting impact fee changes.
I second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. All right, that was our last item on the legislative session, and we don't have any other items.
And I will motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous all around.